Welcome back to the Reseller Journey podcast. And in this video, we're going to be bringing on James with Bold Finds, a UK reseller looking to really make progress in his business and lay the guidelines as to what it takes to become a full-time reseller. So let's not waste any more time and bring James on and see what he has to say. Welcome.
Hi, Bo. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I just want to get right into the questions because the people want to know what it takes if they're thinking about starting a reselling business and kind of like pick your brain as to how you got going with yours.
Sure.
So like what is the first step you took when you knew you wanted to get into reselling?
Yeah, so my journey is similar to, I think, a lot of us when we go into reselling. I don't think
Mhm.
any of us, when we are younger, dream of being a reseller. I dreamt of being a football player and all of this stuff. And,
Mhm.
you realize quite quickly that it's rare that happens. But
Yeah.
I went down the recruitment route. So for 13 years, I was a full time recruiter. And
Uh-huh.
during the pandemic and the C word, I don't want to mention, I was made redundant and I had to kind of make a choice of where I go,
Oh,
whether I stay in recruitment or whether I try something new.
right.
Now, what got me into reselling is I was watching some YouTubers
Mhm.
years back who were
Mhm.
just going out buying and selling. And I
Yeah.
enjoyed the treasure hunt and the hunt of the find, really, at the car boots.
Mhm. Yeah.
And when I got made redundant, had a bit of money behind me, and decided I was bored of recruitment. I was fed up of that, and I wanted to go and then work for myself. So that's when
Yeah.
I took the decision to basically go full steam ahead. Had a bit of savings behind me, and went full steam ahead as a full time reseller.
Mhm. Yeah, so sometimes those circumstances of like, like losing your job, and something that's kind of out of your control pushes you into something that can be greater, you know?
Absolutely.
And so kind of looking towards the future, what are you looking forward to like in your reselling business and how long have you been reselling, since, you got laid off or in this new venture?
Yeah, so it's been just over 2 years now.
Mhm.
I've been reselling. And
Mhm.
when I first started, honestly, it was a case of a bit of a trial period, 3 to 6 months. Is this
Yeah.
possible? Can I
Yeah.
make a full time income? Otherwise, let's head back to recruitment. The
Mhm.
years of experience I've got, it's easy enough to go
Mhm.
and find another job.
Yeah.
So just over 2 years. But recently for me, a big change has happened within the business in the sense of I know now how to resell. I know how to work eBay and I know how to get my head around eBay. I know about looking up, not just the active items, but also the sold and working out the sell through
Yes.
rate. So a lot of things have clicked recently where I am now looking in the business to turn it more from like a learning and a hobby aspect to a serious business where I'm making really good money.
Mhm. Yeah, so you have been, selling a little bit of everything, is that right?
Yeah,
Going
so at
out.
the moment,
Mhm.
I am a pure everything reseller. So
Mhm.
you'll probably see a bit of a mess behind me, but it's anything from gaming to DVD players, VHS
Mhm.
players, Nerf guns, toys, collectibles,
Yeah.
clothing, you name it. If it's
Yeah.
cheap and I can flip it for a good profit, I will buy it and I will resell it. So when I go out sourcing at the moment, it's pretty easy to source stock because
Mhm.
I'm really open and I can kind of go to the car boot sales at the weekend and at a car boot sale, you can pick up 30 to 40 items quite easily that are going to
Mhm.
make you a profit. So, yeah, at the moment, it's purely anything that makes money.
Yeah, I mean, can you go into a little bit of like what a car boot sale is? Because it's similar to what we have here, garage sales, but it's a
Yeah.
little. It looks cool. It's a little different though. Go into that a
Yeah.
little more.
So I would say, and the reason I know this is because I binge watch American YouTubers. I watch more American YouTubers than UK
Yeah.
YouTubers because I'm jealous of what you have there. So a car boot sale is very similar to I would say, your flea markets,
Okay.
where lots of people go to one area. So we have it in
Mhm.
a field. And the
Mhm.
term car boot is because people put the stuff in the car boot to take to them. So the trunk
Right.
in
Yes.
America.
Yeah. The trunk. Yeah.
Um, so we also have what we call jumble trails, which is like your garage sales, where you
Mhm.
travel from house to house and people set up on their driveway. So we do have that in the UK,
Uh-huh.
but it's not as popular as it is in the US. So yeah, a car boot sale is a flea market. Everyone
Mhm.
goes to one place, you go to one area. You walk
Mm,
up and down the rows and buy the stuff.
yeah. Yeah, that's good. Um, so like touching on that a little bit, and the next question would be like, how are you sourcing your inventory, and is that your only way you source, and kind of like how are you able to keep your cost of goods low? Are you just like good at negotiation, or are you looking for like bulk buys every now and then? Like, what are you
Yeah,
doing with that?
so I sourced a number of ways. So I would
Hmm.
say at the moment, car boot sales number one, because you can get lots of stuff quite cheap, and the cost of goods
Yeah.
at car boot sales can be quite cheap.
Uh-huh.
I also go to an auction house once a week, and they can be a bit hit and miss. Sometimes you can
Yeah.
get some really good stuff cheap. Other
Hmm.
times, when the car boot sales are rained off, a lot of the resellers will go to the auction, and so the prices go sky high. So you end up coming away with hardly anything.
Yeah.
Um, but I use Facebook Marketplace, so similar to what you guys probably use in the US. So Facebook
Right.
Marketplace,
Hmm.
other online websites. Recently, I've done a leaflet campaign through the Royal Mail Postal Service. So
Uh-huh.
where I created a leaflet and got 4,500 leaflets delivered in my local area,
Nice. That's
to
good.
see
Yeah.
whether I can pick stuff up.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that idea came from speaking to you, Bo, when you put out leaflets and stuff to find
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really grateful of that because it's made me think about how I can do that in the UK.
Hmm.
And so far, we've had a few people come back to me and a few buys from there. So I
Nice.
think as a reseller, you need to think outside the box,
Hmm.
especially in the
For
UK with
sure.
the weather. You know,
Yeah.
it's raining at the moment, so this weekend the car boot sales are not on for me. So you've
Okay.
got two options. You either don't source this weekend or you
Hmm.
go and find other avenues. So we have charity shops. We have loads of different places to source.
Hmm.
But what we're most jealous of in the UK is the bins in the US because
Uh,
we don't have anything such as the bins where you can go to one place and it's a bit of a rummage around, a bit of a fight to get the stuff. But
yeah.
again, you can
Okay.
come away with lots of items, in one place. Our charity shops are quite expensive.
Okay. Yeah, I think I remember hearing that, um, it was not too much meat left on the bone when you're going out to those kinda thrift stores.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so interesting. The leaflet is in reference to, like, you're sending out mailers, or,
Yeah, let me see. I don't know if I've got one to hand, but anyway, it's I don't think I got one in here.
it's
It's an A4 leaflet.
Mhm.
Sorry, an A5 leaflet.
Uh-huh.
And I on the leaflet I was a bit more niche into what I was looking for. So when I sent the
Right.
leaflet out, it was more cameras, it was more
Yeah.
Monster High dolls, which I know sell really well in the UK,
Mhm.
gaming consoles and games. So I niched it down a bit more. But on
Nice.
the back of the leaflet, I kind of
Mhm.
said, I'm also open to X, Y, and Z. So there's another 5 or 6 categories.
Yeah,
So the pros and cons to the leaflet is you get a lot of inquiries, you get a lot of phone calls, you have to kind of whittle out the good from the bad.
for sure, yep.
Um, but the mistake I probably made, and what I'd recommend to anyone trying this themselves, is
Mhm.
get the person to send you some pictures of what they've got before you go to the house.
For sure, yeah.
Because I've wasted a bit of time. Although it's local, I've gone to a house and then you get into the whole awkwardness of, well, do you know
Yeah.
what? This stuff's not right for me.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I remember first starting out going like kind of meeting with people through Facebook Marketplace on bulk purchases.
Yeah,
You don't know what you're running into, and your time is very valuable. And sometimes you're like, oh man, you don't want to be like rude or anything. You're just like, oh, well, that's not not what I expected. Getting
yeah,
some kind of
absolutely.
picture or explanation, like I got these brands and this is how much I have, at least before you drive out and meet up.
Yeah. Mhm.
But yeah, always looking for ways to market your business outside the box. We
Mm,
have the Goodwill bins, and that's great. You have car boot sales, but also like sending out mailers, even doing cold calling of different mom and pop thrift shops, and asking,
mm,
hey, what are you doing with your extra stuff? Or what are you doing with the stuff that doesn't sell and it's been sitting around? Like kind of thinking in that way, you can kind of get ahead of other people that aren't really doing that. So
yeah.
I like that you sent out those, just a different way to sourcing. Um, so you sell a little bit of everything, and you've been reselling for 2 years. Do you see yourself niching down and kind of if so, what does that look like, and why would you want to be niching down?
Yeah. So you have the exclusive today. On Monday this week, I actually made the decision that I do want to niche down.
Mhm.
And the reason I want to niche down is I don't want to continue doing eBay as a kind of hobby aspect and a fun aspect.
Mhm.
So eBay can remain fun, but it doesn't have to be all fun. And I think as an everything seller, because I've started the YouTube channel, I
Yeah.
kind of assume that everyone wants to see the fun pickups, the excitement of James off to the car boot sale. What can he find? But
Right.
actually, looking at other channels that are doing well, people want the knowledge. So people want you to bring an item home and
Mhm.
explain the reasons why you picked up a certain item
Yeah.
or the reasons why you didn't buy a certain item. You know, the reason I
Mhm.
left that behind on the floor was because of X, Y, and Z. Um, but the niching down, I am going to be niching down into clothing. So joining you, Bo, with the clothing side. But what really was an eye opener to me is I was speaking to another reseller in the UK,
Mhm.
and I explained to him that I had 12 items to send out, and it took
Mhm.
me an hour and a half to pack the 12 items because it's different
Mhm.
boxes, it's bubble wrapping, it's packing materials, all the rest of it.
Right.
And he's a really good vintage clothing reseller. And he had 130 items and he packed them in under an hour. So less
Yeah.
time it took me to do 12. And I think for me, that was a real light bulb moment to say, what would it look like if I can just put clothing in a poly mailer and send it out? It's
Yeah.
not going to get damaged. It's quick and easy to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a clothing expert. You know,
Mhm.
I'm not a fashionable person. Do I love clothing? No, but you don't need to love what you sell. You need to actually
Mhm.
just learn what sells.
Mhm.
And as I've mentioned before, I love money.
Mhm.
So if it sells and I can make money, I will do it. But
Yep.
the main reason for niching down is for me focus, and my head
Mhm.
feels a lot more clearer now, knowing my
Mhm.
plan is to niche down. So
Right.
yeah, the plan is to niche down.
Yeah. And how are you gonna go about doing that? Is that something where you're just like, "I'm done picking up everything and I'm going all in on clothing," or are you gonna kinda slowly do that
Yeah,
process?
it's gonna be a slow move, and the
Mhm.
reason is because could I go and pick up 25 clothing items every day straight away? The answer is probably no. I could pick up
Mhm.
the clothing, but not
Mhm.
necessarily brands that are gonna be worth picking up.
Right. Right.
So what my plan is at the moment, I'm listing 20 a day. So the plan is to do the 20 a day and add in at least two items of clothing on top of that 20
Oh,
for the
yeah.
next week. And then
Mhm.
move up to three, move up to
Mhm.
four. And then by the
Mhm.
time it gets to 20 everything and 20 clothing, then it'll be 21 clothing, 19 everything, and lower it down that way.
Right,
And
that's good.
so by the end of the year, I would
Mhm.
have gained more knowledge from doing clothing.
Mhm.
And then it'll be a case of probably, I want to try and get up to 35 to 40 items listed a day, and then
Mhm.
there might be a couple of everything bits chucked in, the smaller things. Like if I go to the car boot sale
Yeah.
and I see a game on the floor that I know is going to make me £30, I'm not going to leave it
Right.
behind because you can put
Right.
it in a poly mailer. So yeah, it's
Mhm.
going to be a slow transition. I've given myself until the end of the year to kind of completely move over to clothing 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a lot of, I mean, and as well, building up the knowledge of being an everything seller, like when you can walk into a store, you're like, oh, those VCRs sell for this. And, that takes a
Mm,
lot of practice, what to look out for, what to be checking. Um, I think that as you get into more clothing, and as you start to understand what brands to pick up, what brands to leave behind, all of the other things like your shipping, your listing, your photograph, your put away, all that's going to like speed up,
yeah,
no
of
more
course.
testing games, no more testing VCRs. And now you could just put a shirt in a bag and put it on the shelf.
Yeah,
So,
and do you know what? I think for me as well, it's that clear headspace because
yeah.
the first time I went out sourcing was today since I'd made the mental headspace of clothing.
Hmm.
And I went to the charity shop today and straight away I went straight to the clothing. So I didn't go to the
Oh,
other
nice.
bits
Uh-huh.
where I would normally start there and avoid the clothing. So I went straight to the
Hmm.
clothing,
Hmm.
and I think I picked up 12 items and two were non-clothing. So straight
Uh-huh.
away I'm already in the headspace of clothing first, everything else second. So
Right.
I think you can mentally make that shift as well quite quickly.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, getting a lot more clear, not feeling so stressed about, oh, I need to pick up, X amount of stuff. Clothing
Yeah,
for me was a huge stress relief because it's so in abundance.
yeah,
I would believe in most countries as well. It's kind of the thing you see the most of at thrift stores, and just knowing that if I could just refine now what brands to pick up, then I
mhm,
can be in a little more. My processing gets a lot faster, and like you said, more clarity.
yeah.
So now kind of just a sneak peek into what you want to do, down the road. Do you see yourself like hiring any employees? Um, what does the future look like as far as like your growth long term? Do you want to maybe hire a photographer or, as you get going, but explain on that a little bit. What is your plan for the future in your business?
Yeah, so I think one of my plans this year is I need to establish
Mhm.
a secure source, basically.
Yeah.
So ideally, I would like to have to go to the car boot sales for extra bits and
Mhm.
only for the enjoyment. So
Mhm.
my main aim is to try and get something like a rag house where I can
Right.
go to one place,
Mhm.
spend a day sourcing and pick up, 200 items.
Mhm.
Um, the only thing I'm looking to outsource at the moment, I probably wouldn't hire staff in, but I would
Yeah.
probably outsource the ironing. So I don't want to be
Okay.
ironing
Yeah.
200 pieces a week.
Yeah.
We have people in the UK local who will come and pick up bags of your clothes,
Mm.
go and iron it, and it will cost X amount per piece or per bag.
Right. That's
And you
nice.
just put that in your cost of goods. And for me,
Yeah.
that is going to be the process I want to get rid of because if the stuff's all prepared, I know I could list up 40 items pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But it's the prep work what I think is going to take the time. So that'll be the only thing I outsource once I get
Mhm.
to a certain level. But at
Mhm.
the start, I will be doing it all. So washing the clothing, ironing the clothing,
Yeah.
doing the whole process. So at the
Mhm.
start, it'll take a bit longer, but yeah, in the future, I want to outsource the ironing.
Mhm. Yeah, it really is a grind to be washing 1,000 items a month, and you're like, I don't know if I would." It can just be it does take up a lot of time, and
Yeah,
you wanna be able to build the system, do the system, and then train someone else to do it,
yeah, of course.
just to get some of your time back. But, I just wanna jump in the chat. Some
Mm,
people are wanting to say hi. A reseller's blueprint says, "Hi, all. Hello." So if you guys have any questions for James, just leave them in the comment section, and we can get to them throughout the show. A reseller's blueprint says, "I agree. I sell all sorts of stuff. If it sells, it sells. However, I do love selling stuff I am passionate about. Just seems easier." Yeah, for sure. Especially if like you're a video game, like you like video games, you're generally gonna know which ones are more valuable versus
yeah.
like the ones you'd want
Mhm.
to leave. For sure. Marcus, what's
Hi,
going on?
Marcus.
These are my friends. Thank you for coming in. Marcus is about to. He just is on a lead for sourcing bulk bales, and I'm excited to see how that turns out.
Yeah,
Um, Let us
he's
know.
smashing it. He's great. He's
Yeah, he's
absolutely
doing.
brilliant, Marcus.
He's doing a great job. Um, Emilie says, I keep hearing that if you sell clothing as your niche and then add in random hard goods items, it throws off eBay algorithm and slows your overall sales. Thoughts? So, if you want to touch on that first, and I can.
Um, honestly, I haven't got an answer personally for that, and I think that's because I am an everything seller.
Hmm.
Because I sell in every single category, and honestly, when last year I was kind of listing 12 items
Hmm.
consistently, and I was
Hmm.
selling anywhere between 10 and 14 a day quite consistently.
Nice.
So for me, being in all the categories hasn't really affected it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with the algorithm, you never know with eBay. I think if you are 100% in a niche, though, you are going to get that repeat customer, that repeat
Hmm.
buyer.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think for more to the sake of my YouTube channel, I don't want it just to be 100% clothing because I
Right.
want to make sure it appeals to other people who might just say, I don't want to see James go through 40 items of clothing. I want to see James pick up the
Yeah.
odd thing. So I will be
Yes.
chucking that in. But yeah, I think if you can completely focus on one thing, I think the algorithm does favor you, to be honest.
Hmm. Yeah. There's a balance, and in eBay is tracking everything, every little metric, your response time to messages, your how often you leave feedback. So it would make sense that, they're tracking how active you are in certain categories.
Yeah,
I have just been listing clothing, and then I've been mixing in, a hat or a bag every now and then, but I don't go outside of that range too often. So I
yeah,
haven't seen any type of, like, I can't really tell you that, oh yeah, once I started listing Beanie Babies and soup pans, my sales tanked, because I haven't done that. Um, but it does kind of make sense if you're like active in a category, every day for 5 months, and then you stop being active in that category, then your traffic and your impressions and your sales in that category would go down. It makes
hmm
sense.
hmm
Um, like if I have shoes or hats, and I try to incorporate that into my daily listing, I try to list one hat a day for like 3 months, or
yeah,
one hat a day for 6 months, because I want to remain active in that category.
hmm
And if I stopped doing that, I would see those sales slow down because I'm not so active in hats or shoes.
yeah,
So I did that with shoes, and I stopped listing shoes about a month ago, and I've had maybe a handful of shoe sales
yeah.
versus
So it's kind
listing
of like
shoes.
eBay switched off
Mhm.
the shoe tap
Yeah,
for you now
yeah,
because you've kind of not kept
and
up the consistency of it.
now they're just sitting there. But
Yeah,
it's fine because I'm gonna be done with shoes. I don't wanna I'm cutting that out of the business anyways, but just to keep in mind, like, if you wanna stay active in a category, try to at least list 1 item a day in that
yeah.
category.
hmm That's good
Um
advice.
Yeah, so Marcus says, "I'm not ironing nothing." Yeah, so when you said ironing, do they, like, wash them and then iron them, or is it just, like, what's that
It's just
process of
the
that
Yeah,
service?
it's just the ironing process, and I agree. If I can buy things that don't need ironing, I will definitely be doing that because,
Yeah,
with regards to the stuff, you can just make a big clothing bundle and it's going to get the creases out anyway.
yeah,
And I've listed up items even yesterday where I had a couple of creases and I thought, I'm
yeah,
not going to iron it. It's just going as it is. I
yeah,
think it's more from the rag houses because they're literally
yeah,
all crumpled up in bags.
yeah,
You've got to probably iron them. So yeah,
yes,
it'll be the outsourcing for ironing. With regards to the washing, I haven't thought about that side yet
yeah,
because I could probably wash them at home, but
mhm,
if I can find someone who can do the whole lot for me, and it's not going to eat into the cost of goods too much, if it's an extra
mhm,
pound a piece kind of thing, it might
yeah,
be worth me doing. But
yeah,
again, this is kind of long term thinking compared to in the next few months. I've got
yeah,
to do
yeah.
all the hard work myself first.
Yeah, yeah, just a simple method of, like, maybe stacking about 2 to 400 pieces of clothing in a nice neat pile. You'll
Yeah,
find, like, the bottom half of that pile with that weight, got out a lot most of the wrinkles. But if you're buying bales, what I've seen is that the creases are so into the fabric, it's really hard to get out without washing them. So
yeah,
anything
without
that's
washing.
like a permanent crease, I will run it through the wash on really high heat, and that will do it. But
Yeah,
yeah, something to consider, because you want your item to look presentable. Um, but the great tech in sports will say is, it gets to a point, and then it gets to a point where it's good enough, like,
yeah, yeah,
it's good enough, like, you don't need, like he would, I could hear him saying, like, it's used clothing, it's like, you want to just really show it, be transparent, accurately describe it,
yeah. Of
and there it
course,
is.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so, Phil says, "I think about 25% of my store is clothing, and I typically don't wash, iron, or steam any unless they are obviously dirty." Yeah, for me, if
This and
it's like
this
a
is really
stain, yeah.
this is really interesting because as you say there, I mean, Tech gets his clothes prepared and brought to him, but a lot of other
Mhm,
clothing resellers said the same. They're like, I don't iron them, I don't steam them, I don't wash them unless they're dirty and they need it. So this is good for me, who's kind of going in as a complete novice when it comes to the clothing side, to actually
mhm,
realize that okay, so I'm thinking about outsourcing ironing.
mhm.
Would I even need to iron that much to have to outsource it? So it's something to look at in the future.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a nice brand that I know I can make, 20, 30, $40, and I wanna maximize that, I'll make it look nicer,
Mm,
but like anything with a stain, and maybe you can order this too, but I've been just using the OxyClean Ultra White Bright Stain Remover, and that has been blowing me away, as far as stains. So,
yeah,
it's like $10 for a 5-pound thing, and, I just put some in and let it soak for about an hour, in the wash, and it's pretty shocking because, a lot of thrift stores won't put out the clothes that have a stain, right?
mhm,
And it makes sense. So those thrift stores are putting those clothes into a bale to get wholesaled, and
yeah,
really a lot of the clothes that maybe passed up just needs to be washed. And
mm,
it's like we
yeah,
don't want to be in the washing business, but if you can take maybe a North Face or a Carhartt, something that's nice, and run it through the wash, you're
of
like, oh,
course.
this just needed to be washed.
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, something to think about. A lot of little pieces to the clothing resale business. A reseller's blueprint says, I'm going huge on VHS at the moment. I have around 1,000. Wow. And I'm
Wow.
buying another 500 on Monday. I can get them so cheap as bulk buys on Facebook, but they are selling very well at the minute. Yeah, very good. Um,
I've sold
mhm,
many a VHS tape in the past. I think I don't know if it's, I don't know if the reseller's blueprint is UK or US, but in the UK, I know the horror VHS tapes are really sought after. So even when I'm
mhm.
outsourcing, I'm on the lookout for horror when it comes to VHS. But yeah, I've sold many of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I talking with Ray with Good Game Grabs last week, he said that that's kind of starting to make a comeback, like how vinyl records, were hit or getting a lot more on trend. Same with VHS. I think we go through a season of a lot of this stuff where it's like, yeah, not really much demand, and then boom, here it comes. So yeah, VHS can be had for very cheap. So Emilie, I hope I'm saying that right. Thanks, guys. That all makes sense. And Reseller's Blueprint says,
Do you
I'm in
know what
UK.
the name
Nice.
rings a bell now? I probably know this person by their first name compared to their YouTube name. So
Nice.
thanks for popping in.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. So just getting back to it and wrapping things up, about how many hours does like a work week look like for you since you are full time? What does that look like? How many hours a day? And do you take days off?
Yeah, so this is something that when I first started reselling, I
Mhm.
come into it completely wrong because when you start working for yourself, you kind of feel you're your own boss. You're going to be
Yeah.
working less hours. You're going to have more time off, etc., etc. When
Mhm.
the truth of the matter is, I work more hours now than when I was working for someone else, and I think that comes from the passion of wanting to grow a business.
Yeah.
Because all the money you're working hard to earn goes to you, and if you
Mhm.
don't work, you don't earn effectively. So I would say on average, I do maybe 8 hours a day, Monday to
Mhm.
Friday.
Mhm.
I would say, but then Saturday and Sunday, I'm out. The car boots are sort of 5 in the morning till maybe 9 or 10 in the morning.
Okay.
But then I try and have Saturday and Sunday afternoon as sort of my time off. So all in all, I'd probably say 50 hours a week,
Mhm.
roughly.
Yeah.
But sometimes that could be 70 hours a week. It depends.
Mhm.
If you've got stuff going on, I'm working late into the evening. So
For sure.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
not an easy ride, that's for sure.
Yep. Especially building a lot of the systems and processes, you really want to master those first with the intention of, okay, I'm working 40, 60 hours a week now, but
Mm,
believing in 2, 3, 4 years down the road that I can now train someone to do this very
yeah.
easily. You want your
Mm,
processes to be simple and not, too complicated. But really, you got to do those first before you to even grow. Because if you can't
yeah,
explain how you're doing something, then how are you gonna expand upon your business? Um,
absolutely.
yeah, very cool. I feel the same way. It's like you gotta. I was working now a lot more than working for someone else.
Yeah.
Um, so, what is the most important thing that you think you have learned thus far since becoming a full time reseller? What was that
For
thing that was
me,
like, "Oh my goodness."
yeah, for me, it was two things. It was discipline and schedule. So
Mhm.
actually having a schedule and a plan was so
Mhm.
important because, again, when you go from working full time for someone else who are basically telling you what to do on a day to day basis,
Right. Yeah.
when you work for yourself, you're your own boss. You've got to tell yourself
Mhm.
what to do. So I think
Mhm.
for me, creating a schedule has been really helpful. So when I
Mhm.
come into the shed in the morning, I have a
Mhm.
plan of action, and
Yeah.
things run normally in a certain order.
Mhm.
Sometimes things happen and it goes around the houses and you mix things up. But most
Yeah.
of the time, I stick to the same schedule every single day.
Mhm.
And then when it comes to discipline, it's what we spoke about earlier. I could wake up tomorrow and not go to the car boot sale because I'm tired. But
Yeah.
then that's going to affect the rest of my week. Or you can
Oh,
wake
yeah.
up on a Tuesday morning and say, "Oh, I'm going to go back to sleep for a couple of hours. I feel a bit." You have to have
Yeah.
discipline to kind of say you need to get up and this is your business, and you need to act as if you've got staff from day one. That's the way I'm looking
Mhm.
at it now. To think, if I had staff, would the staff want to see me lying in bed while they're doing all the hard work? No. So you've kind of got to run it as if you've got a whole bunch of staff around you as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
you need discipline to do this, I
For
think.
sure. Yeah. The discipline that comes to help me is like, do I want someone to go back and make my schedule? I don't
Mm,
want that. I that is like I want to be able to have my time, to be able to
yeah.
use my time, have dominion over my time, and that discipline through that of like, I don't want someone else to have own my time.
Hmm.
I need that discipline comes from that of like, I need to make sure that I'm managing my time in my business. Otherwise, I will be working for someone else who will
Yeah.
manage my time for me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they'll
Exactly that.
pay you according to the value that you're bringing. So, but yeah, very good. That is key in just kind of rounding things off. If someone's wanting to get into reselling and maybe they're looking from the outside in and they maybe are getting kind of tired of their 9 to 5, what would you suggest a beginner do if they are looking to go full time and just like speed up the process, hit the ground running?
Yeah. So I would say, honestly, I would try it part time first of all if you can.
Yeah.
So with me, I had a fair amount of redundancy money behind me to know that I could
Hmm.
do it for 6 months with no stress with the bills.
Hmm.
And even if I wasn't to sell anything for 6 months, the bills are covered.
Yeah.
So my advice to anyone, if you are in a full-time employment, the temptation sometimes is to see things online. I mean, you do videos, I do videos, Marcus in earlier, he does videos where we
Hmm.
will show you some of the good stuff. We'll also tell you about some of the bad stuff, but you're only seeing a short 20-minute snippet of what actually happens. So
Yeah.
my advice is try and do it part-time on the side if you can,
Hmm.
learn the ropes, get
Hmm.
some money behind you before you leave your full-time job and go full steam ahead.
Hmm.
Um, but just try and learn the eBay platform. And I think when you
Hmm.
do start, sell things you really enjoy, sell things you're passionate about, where you're going to buy
Yeah.
something and you're not going to let it sit in the corner. Because, again, I've been guilty of doing that, buying stuff at the heat of the moment. And then
Yeah.
6 months later, it's sitting in the corner, and then you end up wanting to give it away because you don't want to list it. So, my
Yeah.
advice
Yeah.
is if you're into gaming, go out and try and find gaming bits to sell
Mhm.
because you'll actually enjoy the process of listing.
Mhm.
Um, and just enjoy learning because you will make mistakes, you will make
Mhm.
bad buys.
Yeah.
Um, I've been doing it 2 years and I still make bad buys, so that is
Mhm.
never going to change. But
Mhm.
just go and enjoy it, I say, and yeah, just try and learn the eBay platform as quick as possible. There
Mhm.
is so much information online
Yeah.
that you can actually go and watch people and learn how to
Mhm.
do eBay, how to structure your titles, how to do good pictures as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, just learn from other people and just try and enjoy it. Really, that's what I'd
Yeah.
recommend.
That's really good. Very good. Yeah, having some kind of like safety net of some money saved up or while working a part-time job is going to help a lot.
Mm,
You're not so like, I need to make a sale today or else this, it's like,
yeah.
it just makes it more enjoyable. Very
Mhm.
good. So popping back into the chat, Resellers Blueprint says horror has sold very well for me. I also have manga and like MTV related stuff like Jackass. I sold a rom-com for 39.99 the other day. Nice. Yeah, VHS.
It's
Make a
coming
comeback.
back, I think.
Reseller Tom says, "Hi guys, what's going on, brother? Good to see you. Hello everyone." And Marcus says, "I definitely want full time too fast." Oh, you went full time too fast. Yeah. Yeah, it is, as much as we want to, like, just jump ship and, "Oh, I hate my job, and I just wanna go all in," use that kinda as motivation. That was kinda
Mm,
my journey with that, was, like, I learned about reselling, and then I slowly, little by little, went into it and had it take over to a point where it's like, "Okay, I can leave my job," which I was
yeah,
doing real estate at the time, and I was just so happy to be done with that and moving into something that I enjoyed. But yeah, if you go too fast, you may have to go back to the job you hated or to a job and kind of go back to step one. So
yeah. And I've seen people do exactly that, where
yeah.
they've gone full steam ahead, and they kind
Mhm.
of realize after month two, when sales aren't as quick as normal
Yeah.
and things are a bit slow, and you haven't got that constant paycheck coming in, then they've had
Mhm.
to go back and take another part-time job to do it alongside. So
Mhm.
yeah, just take your time, have a bit of a schedule, have a bit of a plan of strategy as well.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's the best job in the world. I can honestly say
Okay.
that.
It is. It really is fun. It's to be able to have someone ask you like, "What do you do?" Like, what do you do for a job? Because in America too, it's still not really like I'll go to church and people are like, what do you do out there in the mountains?" Like, and then it's like, "Oh, okay." Like, I was talking to Dalton, and he said
Yeah,
something that struck me, was like a lady had asked, was like, "You can sell used shoes on the internet?" I think for most common people, just really don't, it doesn't click to them that, like, very common things that we use every day, you can be a reseller of that item and make great money.
yeah,
So it's like, to most people, they will be influenced by, if you share a little bit of your story of what you do, maybe it can spark other people to go like, "Hey, maybe let's get into that."
yeah.
So very cool. James, I just want to show your YouTube channel here. You got monetized super fast. You're putting out
Mhm.
great content. Where can people find you on YouTube, and what other social media can people follow you on?
Yeah, sure. So all of my socials are the same, so it's nice and
Hmm.
easy. So it's Bold Find, so
Hmm.
BoldFinds, and you can find me on YouTube or on Instagram.
Hmm.
They're the best places. But yeah, if anyone's got anything to ask me, more than happy to answer any questions or help out anyone. Bold Finds on Instagram is the best place.
For sure. Yeah. So yeah, if you guys have questions about simple reselling, or going more in depth on, maybe you're an everything seller, send James a message. He'll be happy to help you. If you got value out of this, consider subscribing. We're doing weekly videos, interviewing other resellers along their journey, sharing their experiences. Hope you all have a blessed rest of the day, and take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.